The Citroën C5 is the first product from the PSA Peugeot-Citroën Group in India. Well, if you now consider the new merged entity of Stellantis, then Jeep and Fiat have been here, of course. But either way, this is a big deal. So it's a really important time, the first product from a new brand in our market. Always exciting, and that's why today we will give you a very comprehensive look at the car. We'll tell you how it drives. And Sahil's here with me because he's also going to give you a lowdown on all the tech that's on board. Right, Sahil?
Yep.
So, excited?
Yes, very excited.
The first thing, of course, that we have to do though is to tell you how to pronounce the name of this brand. You want to take a shot?
Citroën?
Try again.
Citroën.
You just said the same thing twice. One more time. Come on.
Citroën.
Okay, this is going to keep happening here amongst us in the car and bike team, and then for all of you out there as well. Citroën is right. Now, if you're French, you'd say Citroën, but yeah, you know what? It'll take a little getting used to. The pronunciation is not why you tuned in, so let me tell you all about the C5 Aircross. To dispel all assumptions, the C5 sits not in the Creta segment, but actually competes with the Tucson. Oh, and Aircross is a name attached to all Citroën SUV models. Why? Let's just say the French can be quirky. Now, at the World Car Awards in the design category, Citroën is routinely amongst the shortlisted finalists, even winning the award. And that is because it does have very distinct styling that is very specific to the brand. Now, the face itself tells you that, and some of this, by the way, is historically the way it's been, especially what you would call a front grille in most cars. And here, there's double chevron pattern that's reflective of the brand logo. That is very distinct, and from a mile, you know it's a Citroën. The other thing of late that's become a signature is slim DRLs on top and a big headlight further down, almost recessed into the bumper. Now, that may not look new to you right now because, yeah, it's familiar, right? Hyundai Kona, Hyundai Creta, but guess where they got the inspiration from? Because it was Citroën that did it first. There is a fair amount of chrome on the car, and yet it is tasteful and does not look overdone. The finish is excellent on all body panels and material quality feels premium. Now, in the car's 3/4 view, you get a feeling that it's really compact, but you know what? It isn't as compact as it looks. That's just the way the proportion works, and it is actually the tallest in its class. It is also the widest. You will soon understand why that's important when we go inside. It has a generous wheelbase. It's not the longest in the class, but hey, in terms of space and size, the car does pretty well. Now, also along the side is where you see some very distinct Citroën design elements, very classic Citroën look that has been given to the C5 with good reason, because it was always planned as a model that's going to go into several markets. So the alloy wheel design, but more importantly, the cladding. Now, a lot of SUVs have cladding, so nothing new there, but look at that. It's not just a straight line, it comes up, and then you have these 3 trapezoidal elements in there. This particular one is nicely highlighted. They call it an air bump. I call it nice and distinct. At the back, the boot implies space, and inside, the cargo space is generous too. In fact, it is also the largest in its class at 580 liters with the second row pushed back. The higher variant gets an electric tailgate which can be operated by waving your leg below the bumper. Yes, that second row of seats does slide forward or back, and in fact the seats are equally split 3 ways. You can fold each section individually. The seats are a huge focus area also for their cushioning and sense of comfort. The three-way split might make each individual seat feel a bit narrow to some though. But it is nice to have the feel of individual seats instead of a bench. And yes, 3-point seat belts for all 3 rear occupants. On safety, the C5 is loaded and everything is standard across the 2 variants. 6 airbags, ISOFIX child seat mounts, ABS, ESP, hill hold and descent, traction control, parking sensors front and back, a reverse camera, electric, parking brake, blind spot warning, and a lot more makes this well stacked on safety. The C5 has a 4-star crash rating from Euro NCAP, and hopefully the Indian built one emulates a similar high standard. I told you this is the widest car in the segment, and you get a sense of that inside the cabin. In fact, this is the Feel variant, which is the lower of the two. The higher Shine variant also gets a panoramic sunroof, so you'll get a better sense of space there. But let me not digress. The first time I saw this car at global motor shows, I remember just loving the seats. They're so different. I love the use of fabric, and in fact, I wish this leatherette wasn't there, because just a full fabric seat done in this very different material would have been great. Yet it gives you a sense of width, and that's because it is nice and wide. It's also really well bolstered. There's a high density foam that's been used inside, and it's been topped by softer foam that's been broken into these stitched sections. It makes the seat really comfortable, and there are also a few springs under the seat which give you that sense of added comfort, which complements that great ride quality that this car is all about. Now, it's quirky. The design is very different, really sharp screens. You got this stacked AC vent, and I like the elements which complement some of the shapes from the outside that are in that door panel. That looks really nice, including the little trapezoidal metal shape. Now, the only thing that is left to talk about is all the tech on board. Sahil's going to do that in a second, but I just want to quickly point out the tactile feel. Even though everything feels well built, some of it is a little weird. Like the engine start-stop, you got to sometimes press it a couple of times, both for start and for stop. And then its placement. So obviously a left-hand drive car, right? That's a little cumbersome. It's kind of hiding behind the gear stick here. And then even the hood release is on the left. Now that we see in many European brand cars, so if you're alone in the car, you can't really reach out and open it if somebody wants to check the hood. But this really should have shifted to the right. But on the whole, while not lavish, the cabin comes across as smart, well put together and modern. And it is attractive to the senses. Now that tech element with Dr. Bones.
I will tell you all about the tech. And honestly, there's not a lot of tech happening in this car, but whatever happens is done really, really nicely, and it's really, really refined. And it all starts with this massive 12.3-inch TFT display right in your front, which gives you access to all the main information about the vehicle. For instance, the speedometer, the trip computer, all kinds of things. And the digital display is really, really nicely done. The fonts are really futuristic. The animations are really futuristic, and they've been implemented in a very slick way. It's as if this interface has been ripped off from Star Trek. And I, for one, don't mind it. But move outside on the left, you get this 8-inch display. It's not the largest one, because you already see a 10.25-inch display on cars like the Creta or the Seltos. But what it does is give you a great experience. You get great resolution, great viewing angles. It's a slight matte finish, and everything is organized very logically. You get usual features like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the implementation is done very, very nicely. You also get these additional capacitive buttons, which are like shortcuts to enter certain functions. For instance, this is for music, this is for air conditioning, this is for navigation, this is for the main car functions, this is for Apple CarPlay, basically phone mirroring, and this is for the home screen like on an Android smartphone. It's done pretty logically, but there's one quirk. Especially when you go into CarPlay or Android Auto, then you don't get a big interface touch point inside the screen itself to go back to the home screen. So you have to be dependent on this small capacitive button, which you may or may not hit because there are no haptics out here. Overall, this infotainment system feels very, very nice. And it is also coupled with a 6-speaker sound system, which sounds pretty decent. It's going to do a great job. It gets really, really loud. And with most kinds of music, it's going to sound pretty balanced. But the one thing it doesn't have is branding. It doesn't get big ticket branding from a top tier audio brand like Bose, JBL or Harman Kardon. But for most people, that should not be that bigger of an issue. Siddharth already ran you through the big highlights on safety. But I want to expand just a bit on the cameras and the sensors. Like most European brands, Citroën has made a huge focus, a big deal about safety features on this car. Now, this big infotainment display is home to the parking camera, and it's a great parking camera, great low light performance, really nice resolution, so you can see what's going on while reversing this car, and you'll need it because this is a huge car. And it also gives you a couple of different modes where you can get a bird's eye view of your surroundings. You get a 180-degree view, and also you get a zoomed out vision, and you get a top view, which is very cool to give you a sense of awareness around the surroundings of the vehicle. That's a great thing. Aside from that, you also get blind spot detection on the side view mirrors, which is very, very neat. And generally, this car is safe as houses. You get multiple airbags, and it should be a really, really safe vehicle for cruising. So generally, the technology inside the car is limited, but the focus is on the basics and the implementations. You know, you don't get any wireless charging out here. You only get one USB slot on the front, one USB slot on the back. So there's not a lot happening, but whatever it does well.
So the fact that it is good on equipment but not jam-packed indicates the chance for aggressive pricing. I'd reckon anything that stays around the 20 to 25 lakh rupee mark for both variants would be a job well done, and will also get the right kind of attention, something a new brand needs. Okay, time to drive the new C5 Aircross. Now today's media drive is being called the comfort class drive, and you might think that's just marketing spiel, and very often it is, but I have to say that the whole focus on comfort being the USP of the C5 Aircross. Firstly, it's not just something you're seeing here in the Indian context. You see that from Citroën globally. This car does not have a four-wheel drive option. It is front-wheel drive only, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the whole focus on comfort, it is something that's specifically been done to give the car an edge over the competition, and it comes from the point of how a lot of people are moving from MPVs, especially in Europe, to the SUV body style, but they still like the comfort and convenience of an MPV. They don't necessarily want a sporty car. This car is meant for them. Most other cars in this class are trying really hard to be sporty, and then according to Citroën, they compromise on drive dynamics in some form or the other. Here, there's a very clear focus on comfort, and you know what? Spend just a few minutes in the car and it is so evident. So yes, the ride quality is absolutely fantastic. Now, magic carpet-like, maybe not, but broken roads, rough roads, uneven roads, undulating roads. It's not like you don't feel a thing, of course you do, but the level of what you feel as compared to other cars, this is definitely superior. You feel really cushioned, the seats are well designed and they kind of add to that. And yeah, I think the whole pitch is not just marketing spiel, it really works. So how has this been achieved? Well, in most cars, the suspension setup involves having a mechanical stop, a spring, the shock absorber, and then the same arrangement on the other side, a spring and a mechanical stop. Here, between the spring and the mechanical stop, you also have an hydraulic stop. And so what that does is it actually limits the kind of impact that you feel inside the vehicle, because there are two further stages that are absorbing some of the undulation and not sending it up into the cabin. And you know what? I have to say, it seems really effective. The car has a very plush ride feel. Certainly does come across as best in class. So you might think that all of this softening up has really compromised the drive dynamics, because that typically tends to happen. Well, that's where there is some good news, because you still find that while yes, there is a dulling of the edges on certain things like sharp cornering or handling, for the most part the handling is pretty good. And even the steering, while it's really light, it's not soft, and so you still find that it is fairly precise.
It is the engine and performance where you might say the car comes up lacking, though just a bit.
Now, given the comfort pitch of the car, the engine does the job. It's refined, it's smooth, but it's not electric. I mean, the initial punch, especially in initial acceleration, is missing, but you'll find that it coasts along really well and does respond to the kind of extent you'll need it to in everyday situations.
So not as fun as I had hoped, but then, hey, a sporty SUV is not what the company is claiming anyway, unlike many competitors.
This transmission is a bit fidgety, and you do find that even the lever itself, the operation of it is a little finicky. I mean, it takes some convincing sometimes. You have to do it a few times to get it to do what you want, but that's a matter of getting used to. By fidgety, I mean that you find especially step down not coming through as quickly or maybe as timely as you want it to. Luckily, to take some of that control into your own hands, literally, you have paddle shifters.
Most will find the car smooth and easy to operate, and yes, will overlook any flaws due to that impressive ride quality. The C5 Aircross has eco and sport drive modes, and even though there is no all-wheel drive, Citroën offers something called grip control that sends necessary traction to the front wheels. This is why it features a sand, all-terrain and snow drive mode too.
Now in Europe, you have two petrol engine options as well as a plug-in hybrid. And you know what? A plug-in hybrid could have been a really progressive statement-making model to also introduce. So it's something Citroën India should consider, at least in the future. And by that I mean the near future.
Still, the C5 Aircross is worthy of not just being the flagship model for brand Citroën, but also the right product to open the India innings with. The company plans one new model a year in India for the foreseeable future, and if this is what we can expect in terms of design, character, equipment and drivability, then I say, bienvenue Citroën. The company has plans to have 11 dealerships up and running across 10 cities by the time the car launches in March. And these will be supplemented by what it calls a nomadic showroom that will also play the role of getting India to know Citroën.